Hi, Sam here from Roberts Geospatial. Today we're just going to look at all the many ways that you can render multispectral data in ProRaster Scientific. So let's start off completely manually. You may have acquired some data and you'll have been delivered some TIFF files or some other kind of raster files. So the first thing you can do is you can just drag and drop those files straight into ProRaster Scientific and it will be displayed. If you've got spectral data, then you can create a new red, green, blue algorithm, and you can go and manually assign data to each one of those bands. So we'll get the red band, we'll get the green band, and we'll get the blue band. This is Landsat data, and then go to the red component and adjust the data transform, and now we're rendering our scene in what's effectively a natural colour algorithm. Again, this is the hard way. I don't suggest that you do it this way either. The easier way to do it, so let's unload that, is to import your scene into the Multispectral scene database. So that's accessed from this button down here. Let's take that out of the way. If we drop that down, you can see Browse Scenes, and here's the list of all your databases. You can have as many as you want, or you just press the button and it will open the database if there's only one, or if there's multiple, it'll give you a little dialog and ask you to select which database you want to open. So from here, you can find the scene that you want to render, and so we'll just select any scene like this one here, and you right-click on it, and you get a few options. So you have a render scene and you have a display scene. So in ProRaster Scientific, the words render and display both mean that you're going to generate a rendering algorithm, but render refers to spectral data, whereas display just refers to sort of pure data. So if I hit display scene, I'm looking at a lookup table color algorithm. It hasn't done anything smart, it's just looked at the first band in the first field of that scene. So that's useful sometimes, but usually what you'll go for is the render scene option. And that will come up with this little dialog, which gives you a bunch of options for selecting your red, green, blue band combination. So the first option is your spectral target. And this will come out of the assembly virtual raster for this scene. So there might be digital numbers. In this case, we have top of atmosphere radiance that's been computed and top of atmosphere reflectance. There might also be bottom of atmosphere reflectance and those sorts of things. So you choose the spectral target that you want. Usually you'll go for the most advanced processed spectral target, so that'll be your reflectance. Then you can choose a band combination. So there's a whole bunch of these, and the ones that are offered to you are only those ones that are valid for the scene that you're looking at. So it looks at the bands that are in your scene, it knows what they are, what their spectral designation is, and it knows what combinations of those bands are available for display. So we can go, natural color with atmospheric removal. It will then select the appropriate bands. You can change them then if you wish, but you probably won't. And then you've got some other options here to turn on pan sharpening if panchromatic band is available, and also masking if you have a mask available. So let's hit OK. And here we have our scene directly rendered in ProRaster. Now, if you're not happy with that band combination, click on the layer and you'll see here red, green, blue band combo. So I can now change it to, say, natural colour, or healthy vegetation, or anything that I want to, false colour urban. So you can, instead of going back to this dialog and generating another algorithm, you can go and modify that red, green, blue band combination directly from your existing algorithm. Now that we have an algorithm loaded into ProRaster Scientific, you'll see that there's another option. If I right-click now, it says render scene to layer. So now I can add a new layer to the existing algorithm. So we'll choose atmospheric removal, pan sharpening, hit OK, and now you can see that I've got 2 scenes rendered and 2 layers in this algorithm. So you can add scenes to an algorithm to build up a mosaic. Of course, there are other ways to skin that cat. So when you import a scene into a scene database, it goes into a special place. Let's just take a look at that. So we're on my C drive. We go into the users directory. You go into your username, in this case SamSJ, go into the RGE, Roberts Geospatial Engineering directory, ProRaster Scientific, MSS. So there's the path. And you'll find all your scene data and product data down here. So you'll see some files in here called mss.sdb, they're your scene database files, and there'll be mss.pdb, they're your product database files. And I tend to use a naming convention, sdb or pdb underscore, so that I know exactly what I'm looking for. So if you go into the directory that is associated with the scene database, you'll find all of these MVR files. These are virtual rasters. We create one virtual raster for every scene that we import. So I'll get rid of this. And what you can do is you can just drag and drop that straight into ProRaster. Of course, the other way is just to go to the scene database and select it, and when you say render now, then you have some control over the process. But you can just go straight to this assembly raster and render it directly. Just get rid of that. Let's now go to the product editor. So I hit Browse Products and select one of my product databases. So there'll be products in this database. If you right click on it, you just get the option to edit or delete. So, or if you double click, you edit. So if I right click on here, I've got my display and render now. So now is different in this scenario to render algorithm. These have a different meaning. Render now means that it's going to create a rendering algorithm and push it straight across into the main interface, but it won't be saved anywhere. Whereas render algorithm or display algorithm will create an algorithm and save it into the product so that you'll be able to access it in future. So there's slightly different options there. So over here also we have a preview, and you can, this is a little map window, you can zoom and pan around this preview, but you don't have any other control over the way that's displayed. So let's go to our product, right click, and we'll hit render now, and we get a familiar diagram again with a spectral target, band combination, pan sharpening, and so forth. Hit OK, and then we have our scene. Again, we can go to our layer and we can change to a different band combination. So I've opened a different product here. It's a scene sequence, and you can see that it's got this cascade of processing operations, but it's also got these display and spectral render operations in there, and they're rendering algorithms. So and they've been created by, say, clicking on one of these, and instead of choosing one of these display now options or render now, you use render algorithm or display algorithm. So that will create one of these things. Then you can go open in ProRaster, and that rendering algorithm will be displayed. Here's a spectral render. We can open that one in ProRaster, and there it is. Now, you can right-click on one of these things, in fact any of these processing operations, and say Show in Folder. And I'll open up a File Explorer, and it will go into your users, username, RGE, ProRaster Scientific, MSS, and then it'll go into the directory associated with your product database. And in there you might find a whole bunch of files, MVR files, MRD files, statistics files, and so forth. these are all the files that are associated with the product. So if I have a look at the product, here's the XML that generated the product. You can see there's one here, a tag here called output raster. Now if I have a look at that, it tells me that the output raster file name was render.a.mrd. So if I go back to, just close those, go back to the File Explorer and look in here for render.a.mrd, there it is. You can drag and drop that in there. And that's the thing that we're looking at from the product. Of course, the easier way to access it is directly from this product editor and just say open in ProRaster. So recall that from the scene database we can go render scene and we get this band combination algorithm, a dialog, so we can choose any one of these band combinations. Well, you can set up your own band combination. So let's give that a try. Go to the Browse Scenes button, drop that down, and you'll find the red, green, blue combinations editor. So bring that up. So let's put in a new combination. So let's call it My Strange Combination. And then we need to choose what spectral components will be used in the red, green and blue. So let's go thermal, tiers 1, and then say narrow infrared, and then for blue we'll use say red. And then hit the add button to add in your new band combination. It comes into this list and from there you can delete it now or in the future. Now in addition to specifying the combination of bands, you can also specify what the data transform is, the default data transform for those bands. And in fact you can do it for any of the known band combinations. But here's the new one, My Strange Band Combination. So I can set this up for either digital numbers or radiance or reflectance. So let's do it for reflectance for red, green, blue and the pan components. So for the red component, so let's choose a data transform. In the case that we're using reflectance for the red component. So you get this list of data transforms. There are a couple of default ones which the system will use, and then there's all of the data transforms that you've created using the data transform editor. So you can create your own data transform, it'll appear in this list, and then you can assign it to your band. So let's use quantile clip. We'll do the same for green, we'll hit quantile clip, and for blue, quantile clip, and pan, quantile clip. So then hit OK. Now go back to your scene database, hit render scene, and if you have a valid combination for this scene, your new band combination will come up. So here we tiers 1, near infrared and red with pan sharpening, hit OK, and there's your new band combination with your associated data transform. And in this one I chose the default with a quantile clip. So that's how you can set up your own combinations. So if you're a large organization that has a standard way that you render these scenes, well then you can set that up so that your users can render scenes the same way every time. So finally, just want to show you some tricks when editing your algorithms. So I've opened up a product here which is a sequence, a scene sequence, looking at a fire in Western Australia. So I've rendered that, let's get rid of that, and here's our algorithm, and here's the fire that we're looking at. Now this has multiple events because it's a sequence. So if I drop down, I've gone to the red component, I go to the time range, and you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 time positions as well as begin and end, but they're just duplicates of the first and last time. So you can select a range of times over which the data will be displayed. So I can go from January to March, for example. Now I've got 3 events, and the raster engine is combining the data from those 3 events in order to build a final presentation. In the case of the multispectral satellite data, each event is considered to be a total replacement event. So there's no overlap between events. So with multispectral data, we always want to select just one time as both the beginning and the end. And then we'll just see that one single event. So if I then skip through, I can see this scene sequence as it changes over time. And what I need to point out to you also is that this time range needs to be changed in every component that you're working with. And that's pretty painful. So that's why there's this little button here that says propagate the time changes to all components in the layer. So I always go to the red component and I change it in here, and that changes it in every other component automatically, so I don't have to do any work. Now, there's a similar trick with your color data transform. So on the red component, there's a little tick that says propagate changes to other color components. So if I make any changes in here, they get propagated into the green, blue, and pan components at the same time. So that's handy. If you then want to edit them individually, either tick that off, or you can go to the green and blue components and edit them yourself. So that's a bit of a summary of all the different ways that you can render a scene in ProRaster Scientific.